On today's episode, the Colorado Avalanche get their second straight road win on this road trip with some fluky goals and some unbelievable goaltending from Alexandar Georgiev. Let's talk about it. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
Your Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciate it, and make sure you're following us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, Locked On Avalanche at gmail.com. Follow us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. Last but not least, make sure you subscribe to our Subtext. Link to that's in the show notes below. And when you do chat with Kyle and I one-on-one, get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast, like we will do a little bit later when we get their thoughts on this very game, which the Avalanche win 2-1 over the Washington Capitals. A little bit of retribution here and in this one after the Capitals flipped the script on you in Ball Arena not that long ago. So, and it's amazing to me how different and better Washington is just from a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good team. I don't really feel like how they're playing right now is a flash in the pan, just early season success. This is a good team that I didn't see really. I didn't think they were going to have anything this year, and this is without Ovechkin. Ovechkin was not in. Sadly, he's out. He's got a broken bone now. I just thought he was going to be out for a little bit, but he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. So he didn't play in this game. Would have made a difference. He's Alex Ovechkin. He probably would have made a difference. But yeah, this is a really good team, and you got to feel really good about winning this game in their arena.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. Like, not only is this team improved, but this is an improved team without Ovechkin in the lineup. Like, they heard this news before the game was getting started on how long he's going to be out. And it's a while. And this is still a really good team, like top to bottom. You're seeing the names pop up, and you're just like, oh. You're surprised that Washington is built this way, and they're quietly putting together a really good season. Not really, catching the eyes of the NHL right now, but they're putting together a really solid season. And then, at the beginning of this game, as it went on, it almost had that Mackenzie Blackwood in net feel of, oh God, you cannot unlock this goalie. What are we going to do in this situation? The Avs found a way to, this was a very sleepy game beginning to end. Not a lot going on.
Yeah.
But
picked up towards the end, but it was a little bit of a drag. But I think that's the way Washington wanted it.
And that's exactly it. That's how Washington is. It's almost like a New York Islanders style play where they just kind of do their thing and just slow you down.
Which is odd because they've been scoring a ton of goals early in this season. But they get timely goals, and when they get a lead, they just put their foot on your neck, and they don't give you a lot. They are really good at just being in the right place at the right time. It was tough for the Avalanche to find anything of value in like the Avs. They had some good offensive possessions, but it was just a lot of cycling. And it was almost like Washington was like, you can do this all day. You can do this all day. We're not going to give you a good shot. You're not going to give you a good lane for a good shot. And the Avs, it was one of those games where it's like, man, if you get a look, you better bury it because you're not going to get a lot of them. And they had a couple 2-on-1s that they didn't score on. And the 2 goals that they did get, one was just a redirect from Miles Wood, and the other went off a Washington Capitals skate. And that was the first one.
Yeah.
And when they got that first one, I was like, I will take that because you're not getting really good looks. They still had, I think they had 30 shots on goal for this game, 27, so close, 27, and Washington had 29. But it felt like you worked for all 27 of those shots. I'll get to the numbers in a minute, but it's a grind playing this team. And you hear a lot when you see like a fun game in the regular season between an East Coast team and a West Coast team, like, oh, that would be a good Stanley Cup. This wouldn't be a good Stanley Cup because this would be just grinding for 60 minutes. And for you'd be going through the ringer playing a 7-game series against this team. If they can continue this, I like what the Capitals are putting together for a pretty good run.
And, games like this are interesting because it reminds you that players like John Carlson still exist. Like, I remember he caught the league by storm a couple of years ago. He still plays a good game.
Sure he does.
And Jacob Chikrin's out there. He's looking good, too. And Rasmus Sandin. Just names on defense that you don't get to see a lot, like in the blurbs and in your rundowns. But these are really good defensive minds. And I don't understand why they get Tom Wilson with an offensive mind now. They've shifted his game. You got PLD. Like, this is a really good roster and a really good team. And Logan Thompson looked good in net. So, like,
really good.
This is what you want out of a team. And, like, I hope the Avs can, like, learn a little bit from this, this little bit of a push. Because you're going to Florida next for the next bit of your road trip.
Yeah.
And you need some of this, like, control the tempo, like not so wide open where you're blowing teams by, but just this control the tempo and make things uncomfortable that allows things to open up. I really like Washington's game, and I think that was one of the bigger takeaways is how well the Avs, like, hey, you other than that one that went off a Washington Capital for Mikko Rantanen, quiet from the top line. You had Miles Wood as the game winner. But it was a quiet night from Cale Makar, quiet night from everybody else. It was just
Cale Makar had some really good looks, really good, and that's all on the goalie because he typically buried. He had a couple really good attempts, but that were saved. So I don't think they played a bad game. It was just it was a difficult game to really get anything going.
And it goes back to that pressure. Like, yes, they're getting good looks, but it's not such a significant pressure that either Cale Makar or Nathan MacKinnon feel that need to, like, turn it on and go into that, okay, it's mine. I'm going to get us back. Like, it's like a slow drip that you look up and it's the third period and, oh, we got to do something or this is going to overtime. Like, it's like Nathan MacKinnon didn't get the puck and feel like, okay, I'm tired of this. I have to fix this. It was just really maintaining the game. And I liked how the Capitals did that and just how the Avs reacted to it. And you saw them adjusting to this late in the second period. And in the third period, really capitalize on this, pardon the pun.
Lowercase capital. Some stats here over at Money Puck. Deserve to win a meter. Got to bring that up. Greatest deep stat in the game. It favors the Capitals pretty heavily. 61% to 39% favors the Caps. This one's interesting. Expected goals in this game. Remember, this was a 2-1 game. The Avalanche had expected goals of 4.19. And the Capitals had expected goals of 3.86. So yeah, that tells you goalies were pretty darn good in this game. We'll take our first break, and then we'll get to Georgiev. But I'll just leave you with one stat before the break for Alexandar Georgiev: 7 high danger shot attempts against from him. So 7. And he only gave up the one. And the one goal he gave up was a high danger chance. He was on it.
And and one more thing, it's interesting that the expected goals came out that way when the first matchup between these two ended up a 5-2 Washington win.
Right. Yeah. So let's get our first break in. And when we come back, it's Alexandar Georgiev talk all the way right after this. Let us hear from Game Time, and Game Time Picks is the new feature over at Game Time. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even faster. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. What are some things that we have over on the Game Time app that we love? Other than the Game Time Picks, we have the all-in pricing, the seat views. You get panoramic views from your seat right in the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And Game Time ticket coverage, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Right now, Game Time is having an exclusive zone deal for the NHL Winter Classic event at Wrigley Field. Go to the Game Time app and purchase tickets to get 10% off bleacher seating and 20 to 25% off on home plate area seats. Why would you not want to go do that? So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Once again, create the account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Mr. Sullivan?
It's game time.
Yes, sir. All right. So one of the things you always hear me say with Alexandar Georgiev is you want one of those games where he bails you out, where maybe the defense didn't have their best night and he comes up with saves where you're like, he won you that game. You have not got that from him this year, and you really haven't gotten from him maybe since the playoffs against Winnipeg and maybe Dallas. But this was that game for this year for him. The Avalanche did not have their best game defensively. The goal they did give up was very poor defense. It was a transition goal, but two guys on the Avalanche just lost the guy who was behind him. That happened a lot. There were so many times in this game, Kyle, where I see a guy camping in front of Georgiev, and I'm yelling at my television, somebody get on him. And sometimes they would get the puck to him, and other times the Avalanche just lucked out, and the puck would never make it to whoever was just alone in front of Georgiev. But the ones that did get through, he saved them. This was, if this doesn't make you forget the first couple games he had of this season, I don't think anything will. I'm not saying he is like arrived and back and this is what you're going to get from Georgiev for the rest of the year, but it will at least give you different mindset of that was the beginning of the year, and you got to give guys some time to get going. And you saw it from him incrementally getting better and better and better. So this game right here is the best game he's had this season. And yeah, you want to continue that as long as possible.
Yeah, I agree. This was his best game of the year. It's not a complete game, about 90%. A complete-ish game.
What'd you not like?
Empty net. You play the puck. And
are you saying you're saying that the team?
I'm talking. We're talking Georgie. We're talking Georgie. This was about a 90% perfect effort. Like, I especially after that first period and only being 1-0, going into that second and seeing Georgie locked down and his positioning, I'm like, I think he's starting to figure things out here. And then you see that dynamic poke check that he had on a breakaway.
Wonderful.
In that third period, you're like, he's really starting to figure it out. And in that moment, I think he also said, I remember how to play goalie. And then he got overexcited in that third period, which almost tied the game, which I was like, back off a little bit. You're getting it. Find your spot, where he played it in the trapezoid, tried to, rim it around the boards, lost it, and then
could have been disastrous.
Yeah, could have been really bad. And there was wide open, yawning cage.
It was.
He was bailed out from there. But the rest of his performance was great. This is a 926 performance. No, this was a 966 performance for Georgie. This is what you want. This is above serviceable, above average. This was a NHL quality start, except for that little bumble at the end that was almost costly. Take that out. This was his best game of the year, mimics what he put together in Winnipeg, and this is what you want to see. And now I to the everydayers, if you're listening to these episodes, go back a month from right here. Go back to last month. We're probably having the same conversation when it comes to the Justus situation. Like, this is the perfect performance for Justus. This is what you want. And then you're kind of downplaying Georgie. Now we're doing that because of the bad performance that Justus is coming off of. Like, it wasn't that great. Now you're getting more faith in Georgie. Managing these two going into the road trip through the weekend is going to be key. But I absolutely, mark my words, this doesn't happen a lot. I'm really loving the play of Alexandar Georgiev.
It's been good recently. It really has been. So, and you saw who I posted about it. Oh, it was on The Athletic. They had a article on Gibson and how, he seems like he's been on the block the last few years, but it really seems like this is the year that he actually might get moved. And the two teams that they threw out there were the Avalanche and the Hurricanes as kind of like I don't want to say the front runners to get him, but teams that maybe would be like interested in him. And I don't remember who wrote the article. I don't have it in front of me, but they said basically what we've been saying from a fan's point of view, and him included, the guy who wrote the article, it would make sense because he feels like the Avalanche have been struggling in goal. Behind the scenes, it doesn't seem like they're having those conversations.
No,
they feel like they're going to play this thing out, and the goalies are going to come around and be okay. And a game like this makes them feel. How do you think McFarland and Sakic and the front office are feeling right now after that performance? They're kind of feeling like, yeah, what we thought is you're seeing the fruits of that. You're seeing that play out because you really haven't had terrible games like you did in the beginning of the season. Like, yeah, well, you had the Annunen game that where he got pulled. That's really the one outlier. Other than that, goaltending has continued to improve. It's not the best. It's not going to be the best. You don't have a guy on your roster that is Shesterkin or Hellebuck. You don't have that. So you're going to have a stinker every once in a while. But, those guys have duds as well. It's just, this is the nature of the beast for the Avalanche. You're going to get games like you just got with Georgiev. We'll talk about the remainder of the road trip next, but you're still going to have this up and down. But if you can have two goalies that you can swap out, that's what we always say about the Avalanche. You go back to the Frankie days. Grubauer was having a rough game. You knew you were comfortable throwing in Frankie and getting back on track. And I think that's where the Avalanche are right now. You like what Georgiev is giving you. You play him the lion's share, which you know that they want to do. If he has a tough game, okay, you obviously need a seat. We're comfortable putting Annunen in right now. And that's where the Avalanche are right now. That's where they're comfortable with their goalies, and they let their forwards and defensemen do what they got to do.
Yeah, you mentioned, what do you think CMAC is doing? Do you not think this solidifies what they're thinking? I don't think they care. I honestly, this is a Sakic thing too. I don't think they really care about the goalie position when they have the defensive core and the forward group that they have in front of them. As long as you have a pulse and you could keep it, semi just close, they don't care. If you have a horrible game, they're not selling the team and making the moves to bring in Vasilevsky. And if you have a great game, they're not naming a wing of Ball Arena after you. They don't care what the goalie position is like. As long as you get out there and do a semi-good job, that's fine. I think they're more focused on how they're going to wheel and deal and address some depth moves, maybe another defenseman when it comes to the trade deadline. But I don't think McFarland and or Sakic lose any sleep over how bad or good their goalie position is, because I really, you can look at, they went out and got Darcy Kemper. They're picking up not huge names. They're picking up serviceable goalies to get you just serviceable production because they rely on their defense and the forwards.
You might be right about if one of these guys has a poor game in the regular season, they don't lose sleep over. Okay, we'll just get them. We'll get them the next game. Can you have that mentality in the playoffs though?
It's paid off one time.
That's what this comes down to. Is that they are very comfortable. They can get through a regular season and make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But does that same mentality fly in the postseason.
They think
I don't
they
know.
could outscore that. That's their mentality. They think with MacKinnon, Makar, Mikko Rantanen, the ascension of Ross Colton for a little bit, Jonathan Drouin, Val Nichushkin, with all these names you're listing off that any team would be salivating to have on their roster, they think, oh, when we're in playoff mode, everybody's going to lock in. We can outscore whatever our goalie does. And if it's bad enough, you swap out for the other hot hand. They're both serviceable enough. When they say 1A, 1B, it's not because of incredible talent. It's enough to get you through, and they just ride hot hands.
I mean, it almost worked like they were looking pretty good in the playoffs last year. And, you're an overtime goal away from extending that Dallas series. So it is a risk. Let's just be honest. It is a risk playing that game with your goalies, but I think that's really the only option the Avalanche have right now. Can they go make a move? They could.
And you froze up there, but I think, in hindsight and closing up the goalie conversation, I think the Avalanche learned a lot from the Varlamov situation and that contract and how that whole situation ended. And I don't think they want to get tied up in that moment like they had with Varlamov. And I feel like ever since then, you saw just average to good, not like poster talent. And they've made do. I mean, this team was making noise in the playoffs with Michael Hutchinson as goalie. Like it as long as you do your job, that's all that matters to the Avalanche.
And I don't know when it cut out for me, but what I was saying was like, do you feel like, or does McFarland feel like if he goes out and makes a move that will solve the goalie problems? Like everybody's.
I don't think they see it as a problem.
Yeah. Well, you might be right that they don't see it as a problem, but so then maybe I won't phrase it that way. An increase, a better option, I should say. Like everyone wants to throw Mackenzie Blackwood out there. Like, you think he's like the better, like so much better option throughout the course of a regular season? I don't.
I think
I don't think so. Like,
I think the Sharks are really falling in love with Mackenzie Blackwood. I think he's fitting in really good with what the Sharks are doing now. And like that's the thing. That's the situation the Avs have put themselves in. Like all these other goalies you're putting out there, it's about the same. Like if you're playing NHL 25, it's that same like overall 80, 82 ranking goalie. Like it's just swapping a name. It's the same production and talent. You're going to get like 850 to 900 save percentage. Maybe let one fluky one in and have 2 or 3 really great saves that you shouldn't have. Like it's not your household name goalie, and that's just where the Avs are sitting.
So let's get our last break in, and then what do we have on deck? Florida. Some hot weather. So let's talk about that. Yeah. Let's get our last break in and we'll talk about that and get to our subtext people and our sound check after this. All right, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. While I'm reading this, check the score of that game that is going on right now, that Thursday night game. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. What's the score?
19-18 Steelers right now.
Ooh. Isn't
that a Sabaton song? 1918?
It is, right, isn't it?
I think so.
I think it is, yeah. Oh, man, you threw me off with that. I got to go look it up now. All right. Road trip, so far, so good. This is, Avalanche seem to do this kind of like just get together on road trips and just really kind of take their game to a next level. They've, won these 2 games. That's great. Your next 2, the final 2 games in this road trip are in Florida. You're playing the Panthers next, and then you are playing Tampa Bay to finish this thing off. I think you absolutely go Georgiev in the game against the Panthers, because you're still considering him your ace. They're the defending Stanley Cup champions. That's a matchup that you want. Included in that is the game that he just had. You want to, he's flying. His head's in the clouds right now. You hopefully can get another performance like that against a really, really good team in Florida. So it was the perfect time for him to have his best game. And you could argue that Winnipeg game was as good, but that was on a losing side. So that's why I got to lean towards this one, because you got the win. But I'm really interested to see, if that flows into this game, because that's the perfect timing for him to have his best game when you're going against a buzzsaw in Florida.
No, and it sets up perfectly for the Avs, because you roll out Georgie for the Florida game. If he does poorly, here comes Juice, and then you give him the Tampa start. You want to split it up here. It's a road trip. Don't forget, you also brought Juice with you. He's still on this Muppet road trip in the tie-dye van. You guys are all having a blast, but you've got to split the starts.
I don't know if they will, man. I honestly don't, because this was Georgiev's first game back, right? After, so I mean, if there's something there, like with a nagging in the injury thing bug that he had, then yes, you do that. If not,
I give him Florida and I give Juice Tampa.
We'll see.
Because like I
don't
want to. It's good. One thing to ride the hot hand, and then it's another to ride it till it cools off. Like, manage it, because he, like you said, he just got back from the day-to-day.
Yeah.
Like, don't just, oh, you're back. Well, you get the next 5 starts. Congratulations. No, it's management. Like, you've got to have both of them healthy for the playoffs.
Oh, sure. I mean, and it's a long haul in an NHL season, but if he's completely healthy and he's not feeling any lingering effects, I don't think the Avs are going to go like for every 2 games Georgiev gets, Justus gets 1. I think you're looking at a 4 or 5 run before Justus gets 1. And I know
you're going right back to his old production levels.
Whose?
Georgie. If you're giving him 4 or 5 and then giving Juice 1, like that's back to Frankie numbers.
That's kind of what they want. I don't think they want to. They don't want to overload Georgiev, and they don't want to put too much on Annunen either. But they don't. That's what you're going to do for your number one guy. If he's playing well, you keep him out there, and you spare him every 4th or 5th game, sometimes longer. That's what the Avalanche have done. But the only way I see Justus playing either one of these next 2 games is if Georgiev goes to them and says, like, whatever I had wrong with me, it's creeping up on me a little bit. I could use a day. If he's 100%, I feel like, they're going to play him 3 games in a row. That should be nothing for him.
Well, you mentioned this is how the Avs always do, but this isn't the goalie that won you a cup. You got to change it up just a little bit. Yeah,
and I think you will get Justus getting more starts this year, but I don't think you're going to get those Georgie, 8 or 9 games in a row, 10 games in a row. That's not going to happen. You're going to scale that down a little bit, but we'll see. Wouldn't surprise me. And I wouldn't be against Justus playing either, because both of these guys are playing pretty well right now. So it's a win-win proposition for the Avs. So we'll see where this thing goes. I don't know. All right, let's get to some subtext people here. Lisa says, I felt like both teams didn't seem to have a lot of energy. It was a very low energy first period, especially by the Avs. And Lisa's our Avalanche fan here. Yeah. So I think the Caps are struggling with the loss of Ovechkin. Both goalies were solid. It was nice to see Georgiev have a good game. And she goes, most importantly, my team won.
Yep, can't lose there.
Which one's that, Lisa? need some more info on that text. So Cody says, I really like how Georgiev played, especially near the end of the third when the Caps started buzzing. He made some impressive saves, although those first periods where the Avs got outshot 2-1 still needs work. Yeah, this is their MO this year so far, just slow starts and then they just keep amping it up as the game goes on. You don't want to be down because goals are not guaranteed in this sport, but it seems to be working for them right now. And this was the first game, like Kyle, with Georgiev in net, where I felt good. Like even when they pulled their goalie, I felt like they're going to have to come up with a great play to get one past him. If they're just throwing pucks on net, I feel like he's got this thing. I felt really good about how that game was ending, even with the goalie pulled.
And Cody brings up a point that I'm sitting here even wondering and thinking back as quick as I can. Like, we talk about these slow starts for the Avs and how fast the other team always seems to look. I wonder if these first periods are metered, where other teams, the Avalanche kind of get out there and give 75%, and knowing teams give about 100 to 110 towards the end, you're just not there. You've given it all. You kind of have a false sense of confidence, and the Avs turn it in the second, which is their strongest period so far, and put it away in the third. I wonder if it's more of a metered and not a slow, like they can't figure it out. I wonder if it's them intentionally trying to figure it out and let them have a little bit of feeling like they're the faster team until the intermission, and they turn it around.
It's tough to say if that's the game plan. But I don't know, because it just seems to be every game they're coming out.
It's almost like this is intentional,
or just hang around and then we'll just put the
course correct
pin the Ferrari in the red and the second and third. I don't know, but it's working.
Yeah,
but it is playing with fire, because you get a hot goal, you build up a goalie's confidence in the first.
True.
That makes it more difficult. Heather says, does this mean we can stop with the Georgiev bashing?
Nope.
I'm grateful to see our team getting comfortable with their lines, but can we pass with some purpose? I've never seen the puck move so slow.
Barometric pressure.
Yeah. Is that what it is?
Yep.
Yeah. And her sound check is Tom Petty won't back down.
Ooh.
Solid one there. I liked they had Mikko out there with Nichushkin and Middlestat for a while. Good line.
Yeah.
Really good line. It's, that is a beefy line. And I was liking what they were doing on a lot of offensive possessions.
And, we didn't even talk about broken glass. It's officially an Avalanche season. We broke some plexi.
Dude, that conversation from the altitude crew, when all that was going down, is just one of the reasons why I love those guys so much.
Yep.
Because that's obviously not planned and kind of unscripted. And, with them saying that guy changing the glass is the lead singer of Slayer.
Slaughter. Yeah.
Or Slaughter.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm like, Kyle must be loving this conversation.
Right? I was like, I'm so glad this is on 9 News. Like, everybody gets to see this.
They're awesome. A lot of people call them homers. I mean, what local broadcast is not homerific, but they do it in a good, like, they have so much fun. Those guys are awesome. Yeah. So, all right, let's get to our sound check here. And these are songs that go up on a playlist over on Spotify, which is songs that we think summarize the most recent game. And just search over on Spotify, LOA Soundcheck, volume number 4 for this one here. What do you got, Mr. Sullivan?
Where was this game played?
DC of Washington.
So this would naturally warrant my sound check coming from the presidents of the United States of America. This
good
song,
one.
Naturally, Heading Out. The song is called Heading Out.
Heading Out is the song.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is off, I believe, album 2 is what it's titled.
It's just titled 2.
2, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a good song. It's talking about, like, I'm thinking about heading out, thinking about stopping out, like changing the vibe. Like you won in Philly. Good job.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like you're heading out. You're going to Florida. You're really going to test things. The team's starting to find a little bit of synergy. Like, I know the passing and the lines aren't there, but it's because this is the full form. This is where you're getting, like, you did what you had to do. Nobody got hurt. It wasn't crazy. We're not talking about, I can't believe this one play happened or this one call. This was a relatively clean game. You did what you had to do. You're heading out.
Speaking of calls, I thought this was the worst game of icing, non-icing calls I think I've ever seen. Normally, we don't even talk about that, but they were letting icings go. They were calling them that they shouldn't have been calling. This was a rough game for the refs when it came to icing calls.
Tom Wilson checking up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. He just totally gave up, and they called the icing. Like, rough game for this was Frozen, let it go. Elsa could have called the better icing than those refs did last night. So I am gonna go because like this was a grind of a game, and we talked about it earlier. Fun game to watch, but man, like you fought for everything, which is why I'm going with fight for your right from the Beastie Boys. So for that one reason, like you had to fight for it. You had everything that you had to get, just like in that song, everything that you want to get, you got to fight for it. That's what the Avalanche had to do in this game. They had to fight for those 2 goals. They were not pretty. They fought for it, and you're fighting against the board. You're fighting in all 3 zones. Tough game, but they fought for their right to party. So there you go.
It makes me so happy. Beastie Boys are one of my all-timers. I was in a Beastie Boys cover band. This makes me just so happy.
Was the name of the cover band a song from the Beatles? The Beastie Boys? Because it wasn't. No. Normally, that's what cover bands do: is they take a song and that's your band name.
No, we did. We just did a couple of shots. It was. I was ad rock. So
yeah. Oh, so you were that type of cover band. Like you were okay. See, if I'm going to have a Beastie Boys cover band, it would be like Paul's Boutique or something like that.
It'd be Body Moving.
That's a good band. Yeah. See, you got to have a cool band name like that. So, all right. I'll be your manager. If you want to get that band back together, I'll manage you guys. All right. That's going to wrap it up for today, everyone. So thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. And hey, you just got through another 24 hours where you're that much closer to Sidney Crosby being in an Avalanche sweater.
No.
He fights for his right to be on the Avalanche.